Good morning/afternoon everyone. I want to start by asking you a question. When was the last time you felt truly vulnerable in a learning environment? Maybe it was raising your hand to answer a question you weren't sure about. Maybe it was presenting in front of your peers. Maybe it was admitting, I don't know. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and deep learning. But here's the problem: too often, our classrooms become spaces where students armor up, afraid to make mistakes, afraid to be seen as anything less than perfect. And when fear takes over, learning takes a back seat. A daring classroom is one where vulnerability isn't punished, it's embraced. It's where students feel safe enough to take risks, knowing that their worth isn't tied to their performance. It's a place where belonging isn't earned, it's given. As educators, our role isn't just to teach subjects, it's to create an environment where students dare to show up fully. That means normalizing failure, celebrating effort, and modeling courage ourselves. It means replacing the language of shame, you should know this, with the language of growth, you are learning this. And let's be honest, courage isn't comfortable. It's much easier to stay in the safe zone, to avoid the hard conversations, to stick to traditional ways of teaching. But comfort doesn't change lives, courage does. So, I challenge you today: how can we make our classrooms braver? How can we shift from performance-driven to growth-driven? How can we model the courage we want to see in our students? Because when we create daring classrooms, we don't just teach lessons, we change lives. Thank you. Vulnerability is the birthplace of learning because it is in those moments of uncertainty, discomfort, and risk that real growth happens. Learning is not a neat, linear process, it is messy, filled with setbacks, breakthroughs, and moments of doubt. And yet, in many educational spaces, we expect students to show up fully formed, armed with the right answers, and unafraid to participate. But that's not how learning works. Learning requires us to lean into the unknown, to admit when we don't understand, and to try even when we're unsure. It demands that we step outside our comfort zones and embrace the discomfort of being a beginner. That, in essence, is vulnerability. When students feel safe enough to be vulnerable, they engage more deeply. They ask questions instead of pretending they already know the answer. They take risks in their thinking. They dare to speak up, share their ideas, and admit when they need help. But this kind of courage doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in environments where vulnerability is met with encouragement rather than criticism. It happens in classrooms where the fear of being wrong is replaced with the understanding that mistakes are an essential part of growth. The challenge is that we live in a culture that often equates vulnerability with weakness. Students learn from an early age that being wrong can be embarrassing, that struggling can make them seem less capable, and that not knowing something can feel like a personal failure. This fear of looking foolish can keep them from fully engaging in their learning. They might stay silent when they don't understand, avoid challenges that could expose their weaknesses, or choose the easy path rather than pushing themselves to grow. Educators have the power to change this dynamic. When teachers model vulnerability, they give students permission to do the same. A teacher who admits, I don't know the answer, but let's figure it out together, teaches students that uncertainty is not a failure, it is an opportunity. A teacher who shares stories of their own mistakes and how they learned from them reinforces the idea that setbacks are not the end of the road but part of the journey. When students see their teachers embracing vulnerability, they begin to understand that learning is not about performing perfectly, it is about engaging wholeheartedly. The most profound learning happens when students feel a deep sense of belonging. When students feel safe and valued, they are more willing to take risks in their learning. They trust that their efforts will be met with encouragement rather than judgment. They understand that their value is not based on how quickly they grasp a concept or how flawlessly they complete an assignment, but on their willingness to show up, try, and grow. This kind of environment does not happen by accident, it is cultivated with intention. It begins with creating a classroom culture that normalizes mistakes. Instead of framing errors as failures, teachers can frame them as stepping stones. When a student struggles with a concept, the response should not be one of frustration but of support. I see you working hard on this. What's challenging for you? Let's break it down together. When students receive this kind of response, they start to internalize the belief that struggle is not something to be ashamed of, it is something to be embraced. Feedback also plays a crucial role in fostering vulnerability in learning. Too often, feedback is framed in ways that trigger shame rather than growth. When students hear "this is wrong," without context, they may internalize that as "I am not good enough." Instead, feedback should be specific, constructive, and focused on progress. "You are on the right track. Here's how you can refine your approach." This kind of feedback reinforces the idea that growth is always possible and that effort is more important than immediate perfection. Another essential piece of this puzzle is helping students develop resilience. Vulnerability in learning means being willing to try even when success is not guaranteed. It means understanding that failure is not a permanent state but a temporary step in the learning process. When students develop resilience, they learn to bounce back from setbacks rather than shutting down. They begin to see challenges as opportunities rather than threats. This shift in mindset empowers them to keep going even when the material is difficult, even when they feel frustrated, and even when they doubt themselves. Creating a space where students feel comfortable being vulnerable also requires addressing the fear of judgment. Many students hesitate to participate in class because they worry about what their peers will think. Will they be laughed at if they answer incorrectly? Will they be seen as unintelligent if they struggle? This fear can be paralyzing, and it can keep students from fully engaging. To combat this, classrooms must be built on mutual respect and support. Teachers can establish ground rules that emphasize kindness, encouragement, and a culture of lifting each other up. They can model respectful dialogue and teach students how to respond to each other's ideas with curiosity rather than criticism. When students know that their voices will be heard without ridicule, they are more likely to take the risks that learning requires. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce the value of vulnerability in learning is through storytelling. Stories of individuals who failed before they succeeded, who struggled before they mastered something, can be incredibly impactful. When students hear about great scientists, writers, inventors, and leaders who encountered obstacles, made mistakes, and kept going, they begin to see their own struggles in a new light. They understand that learning is not about avoiding failure but about embracing the journey. The reality is that a truly effective education is not just about knowledge acquisition, it is about developing the courage to think critically, ask questions, and engage deeply. It is about fostering a mindset that says, "I may not know this yet, but I am willing to try." It is about preparing students not just for tests and grades, but for a life of learning, resilience, and growth. And that kind of education begins with vulnerability. In the end, the most daring classrooms are not the ones where students sit silently, afraid to make mistakes. They are the ones where students lean in, where they ask, explore, stumble, and try again. They are the classrooms where students learn not just the material, but the courage to be learners in the truest sense. They are the classrooms where vulnerability is not something to be feared, but something to be celebrated. Because when students embrace vulnerability, they don't just learn, they transform. Creating a culture of belonging in the classroom is one of the most essential and transformative aspects of education. It is the foundation upon which meaningful learning, growth, and confidence are built. When students feel that they truly belong, they engage more deeply, take more risks in their learning, and develop resilience in the face of challenges. A sense of belonging is not just about being physically present in a space, it is about feeling seen, heard, valued, and included. It is about knowing that one's identity, experiences, and perspectives matter. Without this foundation, even the most well-structured lessons, innovative teaching strategies, or engaging materials cannot reach their full potential. Belonging begins with relationships. The human brain is wired for connection, and learning is inherently a social process. A student who feels disconnected from their peers or their teacher is less likely to participate, less likely to take academic risks, and more likely to disengage from learning altogether. Teachers who prioritize relationships understand that before students can thrive academically, they must feel emotionally safe. This means taking the time to know each student as an individual, not just as a learner, but as a person with unique experiences, interests, and struggles. It means learning their names, understanding their backgrounds, and recognizing their strengths and challenges. A simple, genuine interaction, greeting students at the door, asking about their weekend, acknowledging their hard work, can make a profound difference in how valued they feel in the classroom. The language used in the classroom plays a significant role in fostering belonging. Words can either build a bridge or create a barrier. Encouraging words, inclusive language, and a tone that conveys respect and warmth all contribute to a culture where students feel safe to express themselves. It is not just about avoiding negative or dismissive language but about actively affirming students' efforts, identities, and contributions. Statements like "I appreciate your perspective," "Your voice matters here," or "That's an interesting way to think about it" help reinforce the message that each student is an important part of the learning community. Creating a culture of belonging also means making sure that every student's identity is honored and represented. Representation matters deeply in the learning environment. Students need to see themselves reflected in the curriculum, in the stories that are told, in the historical figures that are studied, and in the examples that are given. A diverse and inclusive curriculum validates students' experiences and affirms that their backgrounds and cultures are valuable. When students feel that their history, language, or cultural identity is invisible in the classroom, it can send the message that they do not fully belong. It is essential for educators to be intentional about incorporating a wide range of voices, perspectives, and narratives into their teaching, ensuring that every student can find something that resonates with them. Another important aspect of fostering belonging is the way in which mistakes and struggles are handled in the classroom. Fear of judgment or rejection can prevent students from fully engaging in learning. If a student believes that getting something wrong will lead to embarrassment or criticism, they may hold back, even when they have valuable insights to share. A classroom that fosters belonging embraces mistakes as a natural and essential part of learning. When teachers normalize struggle and model resilience, they create an environment where students feel safe to take risks. Instead of framing mistakes as failures, they can be framed as opportunities for growth. "That's an interesting approach, let's explore it further" is much more encouraging than "that's incorrect." When students know that their efforts will be met with patience and support rather than judgment, they are more likely to fully engage in the learning process. Peer relationships are another key factor in creating a culture of belonging. A classroom is not just a collection of individuals, it is a community. Students who feel connected to their peers are more likely to enjoy school, participate in discussions, and persist through challenges. Fostering a sense of community requires intentional effort. Group activities, collaborative projects, and structured discussions help students build connections and see the value in each other's contributions. More importantly, the classroom must be a place where kindness, respect, and inclusion are actively practiced. This means addressing exclusion, cliques, or unkind behavior when they arise. It means explicitly teaching empathy, active listening, and the value of diverse perspectives. A culture of belonging is not just about making sure that no one feels left out, it is about creating an environment where every student actively contributes to an atmosphere of support and inclusion. The physical environment of the classroom also plays a role in fostering belonging. The way a classroom is arranged, the materials that are displayed, and the overall atmosphere send subtle but powerful messages about inclusion. A classroom that features student work on the walls, books that reflect diverse backgrounds and experiences, and flexible seating arrangements that encourage collaboration can help create a sense of ownership and connection. When students feel that the space reflects and respects who they are more likely to feel that they belong. Belonging is not a one-time effort or a box to be checked, it is an ongoing practice. It requires constant reflection, adaptability, and a willingness to listen. It requires educators to ask themselves, are all of my students feeling seen and valued? Who might be feeling left out? How can I adjust my teaching to be more inclusive? It also requires a commitment to learning and growth. No teacher has all the answers, and no classroom is perfect. But the effort to create a culture of belonging, one where every student feels safe, valued, and capable, is one of the most impactful things an educator can do. The impact of a culture of belonging goes beyond the classroom. Students who experience true belonging in their learning environment carry that confidence with them into other areas of their lives. They are more likely to take on leadership roles, advocate for themselves and others, and approach challenges with resilience. They develop a sense of self-worth that is not dependent on perfection but on the knowledge that they are valuable just as they are. They learn that their ideas, contributions, and perspectives matter. Education is not just about imparting knowledge, it is about shaping the way students see themselves and the world around them. A student who feels like they belong will be more engaged, more willing to challenge themselves, and more eager to learn. A student who feels excluded will struggle to reach their full potential, no matter how intelligent or capable they may be. Belonging is the foundation of motivation, confidence, and success. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity. A truly effective classroom is not just one where students excel academically, it is one where students feel safe to be themselves, where they know they are part of something bigger than themselves, and where they are encouraged to grow not just as learners, but as individuals. When educators create a culture of belonging, they are not just shaping students' academic futures, they are shaping their sense of self, their ability to connect with others, and their confidence in navigating the world. That is the kind of education that leaves a lasting impact. Courage over comfort is a mindset that transforms not just the way we learn but the way we live. In education, in personal growth, and in life, real progress happens when we are willing to step beyond what is easy and familiar. The classroom should be a space where students are encouraged to embrace challenges, lean into discomfort, and take risks in their learning journey. However, the natural human tendency is to stay where we feel safe, to stick with what we know, and to avoid situations that might expose us to failure or uncertainty. Yet, the greatest learning experiences happen when we dare to push past our fears and choose courage over comfort. In a world that often rewards perfection and certainty, students are conditioned to believe that making mistakes is something to avoid. They hesitate to raise their hands if they are not completely sure of the answer. They avoid difficult subjects because they fear failure. They compare themselves to their peers and hold back their thoughts, worrying about how they will be perceived. But growth does not happen in the space of certainty and ease, it happens in the space of risk and challenge. If students only engage with what they already know, they are not truly learning, they are just reinforcing what is familiar. True education is about expanding one's understanding, and that requires the willingness to be uncomfortable. Teachers play a crucial role in creating an environment where students feel safe enough to choose courage over comfort. This means modeling vulnerability, showing that it is okay not to have all the answers, and reinforcing the idea that mistakes are not failures but stepping stones. A teacher who openly discusses their own learning journey, who shares moments when they struggled, who admits when they don't know something, gives students permission to do the same. It is through these examples that students learn that courage is not about being fearless, it is about acting despite fear. When teachers encourage students to take academic risks, to explore different perspectives, and to push themselves beyond their perceived limits, they set the stage for deep and meaningful learning. Encouraging students to embrace discomfort does not mean throwing them into overwhelming challenges without support. It means creating a space where effort is valued more than immediate success. When students feel that their hard work and perseverance are recognized, they are more likely to persist through difficulties. This requires shifting the focus from performance-based validation such as perfect grades and right answers to a growth-oriented approach that celebrates progress, effort, and resilience. When students see that struggling with a concept is not a reflection of their intelligence but a natural part of the learning process, they become more willing to engage with difficult material. One of the biggest barriers to choosing courage over comfort is the fear of failure. Many students have been conditioned to believe that failure is something to be ashamed of rather than an essential part of learning. This mindset can be paralyzing, preventing students from taking risks or trying new things. But failure, when reframed, can be one of the most powerful teachers. The greatest innovators, thinkers, and creators in history did not achieve success without failure. They failed repeatedly, learned from their mistakes, adjusted their approach, and tried again. When students understand that failure is not the opposite of success but part of the path to success, they begin to see challenges differently. They start to view mistakes as data information that helps them refine their understanding and improve their skills. Courage over comfort also applies to the way students interact with new ideas and perspectives. It is easy to stay within the bubble of what we already believe, to avoid conversations that challenge our worldview, and to dismiss perspectives that make us uncomfortable. But real intellectual growth happens when we engage with different ideas, when we listen to viewpoints that may be different from our own, and when we allow our thinking to be expanded. Encouraging students to have open discussions, to ask questions without fear of judgment, and to approach new concepts with curiosity rather than resistance fosters a mindset of continuous learning. It teaches them that growth is not about clinging to what we already know, but about being willing to explore the unknown. Another critical aspect of choosing courage over comfort is developing resilience. Discomfort is an inevitable part of any meaningful endeavor, whether it is mastering a new skill, tackling a difficult problem, or stepping into a leadership role. The ability to persist through discomfort, to keep going even when things feel challenging, is what separates those who stagnate from those who grow. This does not mean ignoring difficulties or pretending that challenges are easy. It means acknowledging the struggle while pushing forward. Resilience is built through practice, through repeated experiences of facing discomfort and realizing that we are capable of handling it. When students are supported in developing resilience, they begin to trust their own ability to navigate difficult situations. They realize that they do not need to have all the answers right away, that struggle is temporary, and that their capacity to learn and adapt is far greater than they might have initially believed. Choosing courage over comfort also fosters creativity and innovation. Creativity requires a willingness to experiment, to take risks, and to step outside conventional ways of thinking. It requires students to be okay with uncertainty, to try approaches that might not work, and to embrace the possibility of failure as part of the creative process. When students are afraid of making mistakes, they become hesitant to think outside the box or to express their unique ideas. But when they are encouraged to be bold, to take intellectual risks, and to trust their own creative instincts, they develop the confidence to bring their ideas to life. The mindset of courage over comfort is not just relevant in the classroom, it is a life skill that extends far beyond school. Life is filled with moments where we must choose between staying safe and stepping into the unknown. Whether it is applying for a dream job, speaking up for what is right, pursuing a passion, or taking on a new challenge, the ability to embrace discomfort determines the extent of our growth. Students who learn to prioritize courage over comfort in their education carry that mindset into their personal and professional lives. They develop the confidence to face challenges head-on, to embrace change rather than fear it, and to continuously seek out opportunities for growth. This approach to learning and life requires ongoing reinforcement. Courage is not a one-time decision, it is a habit that must be cultivated through daily choices. Each time a student chooses to try something difficult, to speak up despite fear, to embrace a challenge rather than avoid it, they strengthen their ability to choose courage over comfort in the future. Over time, what once felt intimidating becomes manageable, and what once felt impossible becomes achievable. At its core, choosing courage over comfort is about embracing the full experience of learning and growth. It is about recognizing that the most valuable lessons come not from staying in the safe zone, but from stepping into the unknown. It is about understanding that discomfort is not a sign to stop but a sign to keep going. It is about cultivating the belief that every challenge is an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more capable. When students internalize this mindset, they unlock their full potential not just as learners, but as individuals who are ready to take on the world with confidence and resilience. A shame-free learning environment is one of the most powerful spaces a student can experience. It is a place where curiosity thrives, where mistakes are seen as opportunities, and where students feel safe enough to take risks in their learning. Shame, on the other hand, is one of the most destructive forces in education. It silences voices, creates fear of failure, and disconnects students from their own potential. When students experience shame in the classroom, whether from teachers, peers, or even themselves, it can shut down their willingness to engage. Shame makes students withdraw, avoid challenges, and internalize the belief that they are not capable, not smart enough, or not worthy of success. To create a shame-free learning environment, educators must intentionally foster a culture of safety, respect, and encouragement, where every student feels valued and supported in their learning journey. Shame and guilt are often confused, but they have very different effects on learning. Guilt is the feeling that comes from recognizing that we have made a mistake, but it allows for growth and change. Shame, however, is the belief that we are the mistake, that we are fundamentally flawed. When students experience guilt, they can reflect, adjust, and move forward. But when they experience shame, they begin to believe they are not good enough, and that belief can become a barrier to their learning. This is why the way educators respond to mistakes, struggles, and failures is so important. A student who struggles with math and is told, "You're just not a math person," internalizes a fixed mindset that reinforces shame. But a student who struggles and is told, "Math is tough, but you can develop your skills with practice," is given a path forward. The language used in the classroom has the power to either build confidence or reinforce shame, and teachers must be mindful of how they frame challenges and mistakes. One of the most common sources of shame in the classroom is the fear of making mistakes in front of others. Many students hesitate to participate, avoid answering questions, and even shy away from subjects they enjoy because they fear looking foolish. This fear can be deeply ingrained, often reinforced by past experiences where they were ridiculed for getting something wrong or felt embarrassed by their performance. To counter this, educators must normalize mistakes as an essential part of learning. A shame-free learning environment is one where students feel safe to raise their hands, share their ideas, and take risks without the fear of being laughed at or judged. When teachers openly discuss their own mistakes, model problem-solving, and encourage students to see errors as opportunities to learn, they shift the culture of the classroom from one of perfectionism to one of growth. Peer interactions also play a critical role in shaping the emotional climate of a classroom. Students learn not only from their teachers but from each other, and the way they respond to their classmates' struggles can either contribute to a supportive environment or reinforce feelings of shame. If a student stumbles over their words while reading aloud and their classmates snicker, that student may internalize the belief that they are not a good reader and withdraw from participation in the future. If a student struggles to solve a problem on the board and hears sighs of frustration from their peers, they may begin to feel that their efforts are unwelcome. These moments, though seemingly small, have lasting effects. This is why fostering a culture of empathy and support is so essential. Students must be taught how to encourage each other, how to respond with kindness, and how to celebrate effort rather than just results. When students understand that their classroom is a place where everyone is learning and growing together, they are more likely to feel safe in their own learning process. Assessment and grading practices also have the potential to either build confidence or reinforce shame. When students feel that their intelligence or worth is defined by a single grade, they may start to associate academic challenges with personal failure. If a student works hard on an assignment but receives a low score with no feedback other than a red mark, they may internalize the belief that they are not capable. However, when assessments are framed as opportunities for growth, students begin to see their progress rather than just their performance. Providing constructive feedback, allowing for revisions, and emphasizing learning over grades all contribute to a shame-free environment. A student who receives feedback that highlights their strengths, acknowledges their efforts, and provides clear guidance for improvement is much more likely to stay engaged in their learning than one who feels that their mistakes define them. Another critical aspect of eliminating shame from the classroom is recognizing and valuing the diverse experiences students bring with them. Many students experience shame not just from academic struggles, but from feeling that their background, culture, language, or personal experiences set them apart in a way that makes them feel less than. A shame-free learning environment is one that celebrates diversity, where students see their identities reflected in the curriculum and feel that their voices matter. When students feel seen and valued for who they are more likely to engage, to share, and to believe in their own potential. This requires educators to be intentional about representation, to actively listen to their students, and to create spaces where every student feels included. The role of emotional safety in learning cannot be overstated. When students are in a state of stress, fear, or shame, their ability to absorb information, think critically, and engage creatively is significantly diminished. The brain's natural response to shame is often to shut down, to withdraw, or to focus solely on self-protection rather than learning. This is why the emotional climate of a classroom is just as important as the curriculum. A student who feels safe, respected, and encouraged is far more likely to take risks, ask questions, and challenge themselves. A student who feels shamed or judged will often disengage, even if they have the ability to succeed. A shame-free learning environment is not about eliminating challenges or avoiding difficult conversations. It is about creating a space where students feel supported enough to face those challenges without fear of being diminished. It is about reinforcing the belief that every student is capable of growth, that mistakes are valuable, and that learning is a journey rather than a test of worth. It is about shifting from a culture of judgment to a culture of encouragement, where students are not afraid to try, to struggle, and to learn. When students experience a shame-free learning environment, they develop resilience, confidence, and a love of learning that extends far beyond the classroom. They learn that their worth is not tied to a grade, a test score, or a single moment of failure. They begin to see challenges as opportunities rather than threats. They understand that their voice matters, their efforts are valued, and their potential is limitless. This is the kind of education that empowers students not just to succeed academically, but to navigate life with confidence, courage, and a deep belief in their own ability. It sounds like you're wrapping up a video or a post for your channel. If you want a polished closing statement, you could say something like, "Hey friends! If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you want a more customized sign-off. Rocket smiling face with smiling eyes."